their question was that what could you do with, if it's junk, you can throw it away, what can you put there instead? And their result was this living kind of a memorial, a living monument, like living tombstone sort of a thing. So taking the active parts of your loved one's DNA and implanting into a junk DNA part of a tree. And then you plant it somewhere in the graveyard, wherever you want to plant it. So it completely changes the perception, even though functionally it doesn't do anything about them. So this is completely a concept. So what they did about the project was that they went to talk with a number of different scientists about the feasibility in the first place and what they would need to go about doing it. And the response was resounding yes, that there's no problem in principle about doing this. Of course, it would need some good backing to get it commercially done or like get it done in the first place. And with this information in the background, what they did to present the work, to craft the work, was that they wrote a press release describing the project and sent it to many newspapers in the UK. And as a result, they got a huge, completely controversial or like bipolar response, people who wanted to kill them and people who wanted to be stored once they were killed or dead through their means. And this whole discourse, for me in the beginning I felt that it was really, you know, like a cheat or kind of a cop-out of a project. I mean, this one-liner, an idea, they didn't do anything about it, they just talked to some people and then presented some clippings and you know, newspaper clippings and people's letters about them. But in terms of what they wanted to do with the project, by proposing this idea and making people question about that side of biotech, I think in retrospect it was hugely successful. Can't think of any better way of doing it. The next project, this is from maybe 2002 by Jimmy Loiseau and James Auger, called AudioTooth. Basically a Bluetooth audio implant in your tooth, using bone conductance to make the sound audible, and then having a microphone so that that it would also broadcast the signal. So I mean, Bluetooth tooth. So what they did, this is all they did. Again, I mean, for me, I was very critical when I saw this first time. I mean, nice idea. Okay, so what's coming out of it? So they did this huge tooth. I mean, it's about this big, and put any old microcontroller, single board, I don't even know what it's in there, and cast the whole thing in resin. Looks great, and is great tool for talking. Then they also did their research and talked to lots of people about the feasibility of if this would be possible to do. And again, the response was resounding yes, that given a couple of years, miniaturization, all that, yes, it would be possible to do. And again, they got equally controversial or kind of bipolar response from the audience, saying how this kind of what do you call it when technology gets implanted in human body? It's cyborg. Yes, thanks very much. This kind of cyborg discourse in the first place, and then people who just felt it'd be a very useful thing to have. Then another project, this one is from the University of Arts, where I'm teaching, a project called Parasites. The idea was looking at trains as interfaces. And what the guys did, they made this little kit that you could plug on the side of the train, and it would project parallel worlds into by flying buildings, basically. Using camera tracking to match the speed, and people looking out through the window, they would see these parallel worlds being kind of whizzing by. So what they did was that they did a fully functional demo, but from within the train, so having a normal projector and a laptop in their lap and projecting through the window, and then made a beautiful looking case with the right kind of fittings that you could actually mount in the wall. And these two things were separate. They were presented as one thing, and they again got very, very nice response for the project. There's the kind of, so for me, there's the kind of, the question there is that in order to make impact, you have to be standing behind the idea. You have to be very strong about it and kind of visionary. But at the same time, when this becomes lying, when this becomes like too much, that people then like, I want to have this in my so-and-so next thing, and where can I buy it? And then if you say that, well, you know, it's not really working, then what happens? I mean, this has happened to me also a couple of times, and it's always a kind of interesting experience to how to deal with those situations. Yes, then the next project is kind of combination of many things. This is a project that I did back in the day together with Markus Kirsch. Started in London at the Royal College working on this thing as a result of a brief looking at wearable technology. So we extended wearable technology to both extremes, the implant-like things and then the easy removable like wristbands and clothes, etc. And then tried to find something in between. Ended up looking at edible technology, tried to feed things to people. Nobody wanted to eat them, therefore decided to feed them to pigeons. At the same time, what was happening in UK, this was kind of this whole Data Protection Act thing going about, where it became legally binding for companies having public space CCTV cameras to provide the material of those, if they're recorded, to provide the material to those who would request, who would have been in the pictures themselves. So if you're standing in front of the CCTV camera, you could go to the company the next day and say, hey, I was there between 5 and 7. Could I please have the videotape where I was standing there? And they would be legally bound to actually providing you with, I mean, but then you would have to pay some money for the processing. But in principle, it became legal. So we're looking at this whole development and did some bit of kind of leap of faith there and proposed a combination of these two things. Both of us were living in London at the time, not knowing the city, and were interested in kind of browsing around in the unknown areas. And ended up proposing this project called Urban Eyes, where we would feed pigeons with RFID transponders. And the CCTV cameras in the public space, if people started requesting the material, maybe one day they would be networked. Maybe the streams could be then tapped and automated. And then maybe some people would also install some RFID readers to those cameras, and then, you know, that when the birds would fly by, you would capture those images and they would be sent to you. Of course not. This was an idea. It was it was just combining these various different things into this one big scenario, looking at giving a bird's eye perspective to a passerby who would then lead you through the city into unknown situations and kind of unexpected corners through camera visions that weren't meant for the public consumption. So then, okay, so this was the big idea, never meant to be done. And then we got some little funding to actually make it. So we had to start chopping off the edges of our big vision, the vision that we knew that wouldn't really happen, even though we were kind of standing behind it. So what we then did was this little bird feeding station. It's a little platform with the RFID reader inside. And then we manually searched through different web streams in the area. This is in Rotterdam, in Holland. That we would then manually connect to be sent through this device to people with mobile phones close by when birds with RFID chips on their legs instead of feeding them would land on that thing. So, okay, this is an extremely condensed description of the project, but basically we started chopping the edges off from all sides and making it smaller and smaller in order for us to be able to make it. At the same time, it still, for me, kind of maintains kind of the essence, but is it really the same project? I would like to ask you. So, whether it was better to fake it or to make it, in this case, where the concept was at the level that it wasn't really feasible in the first place. Right. So, I guess it's time to kind of wrap things up and look at what we've kind of gone through here. This is a bit of a tangent to the wrapping up of things. We're just maybe half an hour ago, about so we were talking about other kind of new tendency in the media arts that we felt very similar to the kind of community spirit in the hacker scene, which was this kind of sharing of ideas and organizing smaller scale workshops and building these communities around things. So here we have different hacking workshops, little electronics for designers and artists, just as inspiration for how to go about coming up with new ideas with tools that you don't really know that well about. Yeah.
But something about what media artists could bring to hackers.
Yeah, so the kind of question, on one hand, the question that I just laid at you was that which way for the media arts is better to work, whether it's about doing scenarios or doing real things. The other question for us is to then, well, this being the case, how would you feel about, how would you see the role of media arts in the kind of work you're doing? What is the value added of this kind of quirky projects that may look nice and work and provide some kind of inspiration, a new way of thinking about things to your domain? And one kind of way that we were thinking about it would be to say that, well, as I was showing those quirky fake projects, they got lots of exposures to people who didn't really look for this stuff. So the way I feel about the hacker community is that once you want to know, there's lots of people working on the area who want to share ideas and who, once you put yourself into the situation, it's really, really, you can learn a lot and you can give a lot. At the same time, people who don't know about things, who are kind of outside, who you might want to draw into the equation. What I feel about many of these kind of media artsy projects are that they catch people's inspiration and the kind of excitement through tangible examples that they can deal with and understand without understanding the technology much easier. Therefore, trying to find a way where these two things could exist in balance or support each other could be maybe an interesting new tangent.
Okay.
No?
Yeah.
Very good. So
Yeah.
I guess we leave it for the questions. Well, maybe again.
Hi, I have a question. First of all, thank you for the really good examples of media art and its application. I think a place like this really needs that type of exposure for the people because most of us are programmers, hackers. We don't really know what's going on in the media arts field. I agree with a lot of what you're saying, both of you are saying, but I think you're really missing the point and the punctum, and you're kind of missing the mark at why you're showing this to the people here in particular. And I think the thing that makes media artists, computer artists, and hackers one community is the fact that, quite frankly, both groups like to fuck around, pardon my French. The whole point is that both groups are remediating. They're pushing the boundaries of what we perceive technology to be. And I think that's more important than saying that these people are playing around with media arts. It's actually, we are at the forefront, at the cutting edge of what we can do with technology. And this is what's synonymous in both groups. And I think that's really what you're missing.
Now, we were meaning to communicate it and we didn't communicate it well. That's what we meant to say. So thank you.
Thanks for the articulation.
Yeah, thanks for the articulation.
Actually, I have a couple of points. I hope I don't forget them. My point was kind of similar because I wouldn't have said that you didn't get this across. I think you got it across very well. That I don't think the question is, are artists allowed to lie? I think lying is very well means to an end sometimes, and this is good for this is true for the artist as well as the hacker. And so to answer your question from my position, of course it is okay to lie and to fake it.